Welcome to my office. We have a food trailer, and I smoke barbecue. I'm Papa with Smoking with Papa Barbecue.
Tell me, baby, what's a man? Oh, what's a man? Tell me, baby, what's a man? What's a man got to do? Tell me, baby, what's a man? Oh, what's a man? Tell me, baby, what's a man?
Hey, it's Papa with Smoking with Papa Barbecue, and today I'm going to show you how I trim a brisket. And then we're going to go through and season this brisket, rub it down, and then I'll put it on the smoker and I'll give you the details about that. That's today on Smoking with Papa Barbecue. That's our brisket that we're going to do, and I don't know if you can see, but it has a little bit of rise in the back where our point is, and then coming down to our flat, you can see that it kind of moves down and gets a little thinner right there. I'm going to show you how to shape that up and get it to where it's very aerodynamic, get this fat off of it, trim the back, and make it a presentable brisket. The very first thing that I do is I take a look at this decal, and I want to take that down. Now, some people, you know what? I'm going to start with this. This is your brisket. You don't have to trim it like I do. If you want a little bit more fat on it, leave a little bit more fat on it. I'm going to show you how we trim for competition. I'm going to show you how we trim to serve our customers on our food truck. And then you take what I do, and if you want to add or take away, that's your prerogative. It's your brisket. But what I do is I take this decal and I trim it down. I do not take the whole decal out. I get it to where the fat is soft, and I know that it will render down. People will tell you the decal will never render down. That's not true. If you can get it and you can push your finger in and it's softer, that fat will render. So let's start. I'm going to start up here at the very top. I'm going to take my knife. Make sure you got a sharp knife. And I'm going to cut down. We're going to take this, put it right there. I always save all my fat. I always save all my trimmings. I use the fat for tallow, and I use our trimmings to grind up, and that goes in like our cowboy beans. You may want to make grind it up and make hamburgers out of it. It's good meat. It's brisket. So I save every piece of this brisket and use it. I paid for it. I'm going to use it. We still got a little bit on this decal. It's still a little hard, so I'm going to take and come back down and remove a little bit more. And I think I've got that down to where it is good and it will render. That's the first thing that I do. The next thing that I do is I want to flip this this brisket over. You can see that it's got a rise. I want to take that and make it as flat as I can. I'll show you how I do that. We're going to take it, we're going to flip it over. This right here. We're going to take this piece, this skirt, and we're going to take it and we're going to chop it right off. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to remove this whole deal. And guys, I'll tell you this, when you remove this, it's got a lot of fat in it, but I'll tell you, it's got a lot of meat in it too. you can see that, that's still got a lot of good meat. And we'll use that. Goes right there. Since we're on the back, I got this hanging piece. It's going to burn. It's probably going to come off anyway once I start rounding this off. But I've got that down. Another way that you can kind of tell where you need to go, if you see me pulling up on this and it's excess fat, that's coming off. All right, kind of got that down. We're going to work on this back some more, but I'm going to flip back over and go to the front. Next thing I'm going to do is where that decal was on that side. I'm going to come through with my knife and I'm going to take about that much off on the sides. And I'll show you why I do that here in just a second. Now guys, you don't have to worry about getting round and all that yet. But the reason I do that, when I get back on that back side, see all this fat that's right here? I just exposed that. I know where I'm going to trim down. It gives me a guide. Plus it takes that excess fat off. And that's another reason I trim it down. But that's a good guide. We take about a 1/4 inch of fat all the way off the brisket. I get aggressive on this back. It's got enough fat here that it's going to still render, and you're still going to get a very good, juicy point. And I leave maybe a little bit more on this flat for the simple reason. Now in competition I wouldn't. I'd take it all the way down. When we're serving to our customers, I like a little bit of fat on it. They like a little bit of fat on it. And even though this point is very lean, I leave a little bit more fat down here as opposed to up here. So anyway, we're going to take that rest of it and trim all this down, or trim it all up. As I'm doing that, got that side trimmed up, I want to come back here. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to make this very aerodynamic. So meaning I want this curved, and then I want this curved. Reason being, once I got it on my smoker, and I want it flat, I want that smoke to come right across the top of this. Now, I'd cook fat side down, doesn't matter to me. You can cook fat side up, fat side down. I've done both. I don't see a real difference. This is my presentation part of the meat. Because number one, your rub on the back end is not going to stick to fat. You're going to have spots that are come off. And especially if you're doing competition barbecue, you don't want that. You want a nice presentation. That's why I cook fat side down. All right, so I'm going to come, I see this. In your mind, you're going to want to, and a lot of this is fat. It's just fat. I'm going to take that fat off. Even though I said I like to leave some of the fat on, we're going to take some of that fat off and make it aerodynamic in the back. So, I see where a lot of this chunking, it's hard fat. Remember, kind of like we said on our dickel, if I can put my fingers on it and it's very hard, it's not going to render. So we're going to take it right about there. I'm going to make a small cut. Did a video with ribs. Small cuts equal small mistakes. Big cuts equal big mistakes. You can't undo a big cut. And then we're just going to come back around. Guys, this is, you're saying you're cutting into the meat. You're cutting a lot of meat out. That's how much meat's on that. Flip that around, get a better look at it. We're still going to work on this, but right now we're going to flip it back over. Let's work on the back a little bit more. I've got a lot of exposed here, and to do the same thing as what we did on this side, we're going to do that on this side of the brisket. Now I'm real thin right here, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. When you're trimming too, get this brisket as flat as possible. All right, now, now let's work on this back side. I've got a gauge so I can see how much fat is on this, and where I can take my knife. Again, small cuts, small trims. Small trims equal small mistakes. Even though I know this is going to be rounded off, I'm going to go ahead and start right here, and we're going to trim that down. Again, on my briskets on the point, and I've already made a small mistake. I can fix that by coming back and going back over top of it. When I'm trimming, I usually take that piece that I've cut and I fold it back so I can see what I'm doing. If I make a mistake, I can see it right away and I can correct. Right in here, I'm feeling some really, really hard fat. We're going to go, and it's kind of just, I don't know if you can see that hump. We're going to take that hump down. Okay. All right. I've got that cut down to about where I want it. I may make a few more adjustments as we go through. I'm going to flip this over. Again, I want to get it as fat, or I want to get it as flat as I can. Now, I said this was the thinner piece, this was the thicker piece. As I come through right about there, that's a lot of meat I'm cutting off, but it all gets used. All right. I did cut a lot of meat, but I don't know if you can see the difference. This is going to burn. It's too thin, and it's not going to be really good. But now I can kind of shape this out. So I want to round it off. Come through, just take your points or your where your edges are. If it looks like it's got a point, just take it down. Okay. So now let's work on the fat that's on the brisket top. What I do is I cut with the grain. If I see fat, I come through, I keep my knife parallel. a little bit more silver skin right here. Let's take that off. Hey, look, it's not imperative that you get that silver skin off. If you're cooking competition, I would. Makes a better presentation on a brisket. If you're cooking in your backyard, or like we're doing, we're cooking for an event, it's not necessary that that silver skin is completely off. And it helps your rub stick to the brisket a little bit better. Again, that's why I said in competition, you're going to want to. I'm not real happy with this back here. I'm going to trim that up just a little bit more. Here we've got a piece. It's kind of out on its own. I'm trimming that out of there. Now, if I was doing competition, there's a few other things that I would do. I'd probably take my scissors and I'd come through and, like, there's a little piece right here, but I'd trim my edges with my scissors all the way around. For what we're doing, it's not necessary. Just your normal backyard barbecue or cooking for customers, that this is gonna, a lot of it's gonna get chopped for sandwiches, and some of it'll go on plates. When I sell, about right here, that's what the separation of that brisket is. This is gonna be leaner meat. This is gonna be your fatty. My sandwiches, I'll cut out of this. Anything that I'm using for a plate will come out of the flat. It makes better. I'm not real happy with that. Like I said, I'll make adjustments. That's how much I cut off. But as I'm looking at this, I want to make sure that I've got a good brisket. It's trimmed right. It looks good. It's aerodynamic. Now, when we get ready to rub, Butcher, and we bought this, he kind of got a gouge here. I could take my knife and go parallel and cut a lot of that gouge out. And if I was cooking this or smoking this for competition, I probably would, and take that down just a little bit. That way that gouge, I don't get. Reason being, will it smoke and will it cook? Yes, it will. But once I put my rub on here, you're going to get rub stuck in this little canyon right here, and you're going to get, depending upon what type of cut I give to the judges, they're going to get a mouthful of rub. I don't want that. I want to make sure that this is even, that the rub is even, that all the spices mix and they're layered correctly, and they get, this bite tastes the same as this bite, as this bite, as this bite. That's the reason I would probably, competition wise, I'd trim that down. No, we're not. All right, so another thing I would do, and I do because I guess habit. On the grain of the brisket, and I'm sure that you can see that, I come through and I call it giving the brisket a shave. So I just take my knife, put my hand underneath it, take it like this, and I just shave it down. This makes sure that you get any little things that you might have missed. There's one right there, and it's coming off. It's just shaving the brisket down. I don't want anything popping up that burns on the meat, because it's not really attached to the meat, and I just give it a good shave. And I shave with the grain. Now, that's all I took off. But it's those little bitty pieces that stick up that I just shaved right off. So we've got our brisket. And it's ready. It's ready for rub. I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay, well, we've got the presentation side, or the fat side down, meat side up, presentation side done. It's been sitting for probably 1 or 2 minutes, and you can probably already see that it's starting to sweat just a little bit. And somebody asked, why do I use a rub? The rub has nothing to do with the taste of the inside of the meat. This is never going to penetrate other than maybe an eighth, a quarter of an inch, maybe. Your rub is doing nothing but building a bark. And you're going to see that once we take these briskets off. Only thing this is doing is it's making a very, especially for competition, it's making a very nice presentation. And when you slice into this, whether it be into the point where you're going to get larger slices and you're going to get more of that bark with the meat, it accents the taste of the beef. Again, we talked about not losing the taste of the beef and just tasting all seasoning. That's why we don't use just a pouring of seasoning on. It's layered. I want those spices to mix, and you get a good taste of the bark with the beef. And then, once you take this off, or once we take it off, and you'll see, and you're doing your brisket and you're doing it right, this thing ought to look like a meteorite. And you're going to look at it and go, oh my gosh, I burned it. You haven't burned anything. Only thing you did was create a great tasting bark. One other thing, if you take your briskets off and you've got all this and you say, well, Papa told me that it should look like a meteorite. And this side has some real good bark on it, but this side doesn't, and it's real blotchy. You put, more than likely, you put too much binder on it. Binder, I told you you could never taste it, but you can put too much on it to where as this bark is starting to create, it'll puddle up and it'll slide off, and you're losing your bark. So keep in mind, when you're putting your bark on, you just want a thin layer of whatever you're doing, whether it be water or mustard, olive oil, whatever. It's just a thin layer, and that'll keep your bark, as it's creating in the smoker, it'll keep it nice and tight. Now, something that we do, especially if I'm cooking for a customer, we'll smoke our briskets and then we vacuum seal them. Once we vacuum seal them, they're going to go to the customer, they're going to want to reheat. If they've got a smoker, they can take this out of the vacuum wrap, put it back on the smoker for maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and it'll tighten that bark back up. Same thing kind of with an oven, not as good because you're not getting the smoke, and the smoke really is kind of tightening that bark up, but it'll tighten up, and that's what we normally do. Or if I've got an event, yes, these will sit in the hot box. As they're sitting in the hot box, wrapped in tin foil, they'll start to lose a little bit of that excuse me, that tightness on the bark. I'll throw them back on the smoker for 4 or 5 minutes, and that'll tighten right back up. Then we'll bring it and cook it, or and slice it. There's our presentation piece of brisket, and we're going to get the smoker fired up and get it on, and we'll smoke these. Now, I told you how I do my briskets. I put them on the smoker at 225. They smoke for about 4 hours. After 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours, I crank it to 250. They finish up. We do not wrap our briskets until the very end. They finish up, and I take them off with a temperature, internal temperature of 183 to 185. Once I take those off, I wrap them with beet tallow. Then we put them in the heat box. They'll sit in a heat box from anywhere between 12 to 14 hours at a temperature about 135, 140. And that's where they finish cooking and resting in that heat box. Once we get ready to serve, we take them out of the heat box. I do not cut my briskets until they're ready to serve. We'll cut them with the kind of like this, if you can see that, leaving my point down here I'm sorry, leaving my point up here, my flat down here. And for us, especially at events, all my chopped beef for barbecue sandwiches, or anything that we use in our elotes and our nachos, anything that's chopped, I take off the fatty side. This is the leaner side. I leave that more for our barbecue plates where they're going to get slices. If I'm serving and I have someone that comes up and says I'd like a pound of brisket or a half pound, I ask them automatically, do you want the fatty end? Do you want the point? Or do you want lean meat? Do you want the flat? A lot of times, because customers love fat, I don't know why. Well, yes I do, because it tastes so damn good. They'll ask for the fatty end, or they'll split it. So the briskets have been sitting in the smoker for about 5 hours. We bumped it up to 150, and they smoked for another 4 hours. And we're about to take them off and wrap them up with some tallow and put them in the heat box. So how I do this, we'll put this on the tallow like so, and then we'll come in and wrap this up. Show you that process, just like that. Make sure your briskets are really good and tight when you wrap them. Okay, now we're going to wrap this. We're going to keep it real good and tight. Got that tallow in there to go over once. Again, sealing those sides up, making sure that's good and tight. We'll go over one more time. And she is wrapped up, ready to go in the heat box. I'll sit it in the heat box at about between 130 and 140, about 135. And that'll rest and sit in there for the next 12, 14 hours. And then we'll be ready to serve. Anyway, that's how we do our briskets. Appreciate you watching. And leave us a comment. Subscribe to our channel. Ring the bell. That way you know about the next video coming up. And we'll see you on the next episode of Smoking with Papa Barbecue. Thank you.
So we're at our event, and I wanted to show you the brisket since we didn't get to show you what it looked like and how it came out. Now this has been sitting in the heat box. Whew, look at the juice coming out. It's been sitting in the heat box, resting. Like I said, I'll let my briskets rest anywhere between 12 to 14 hours. Take a look at this. Now I'm going to put this back in the smoker for about 4 or 5 minutes. But you can see that the bars is kind of wet. But if I put it back in the smoker, that's going to tighten back up, and we'll have a brisket ready to serve. I appreciate y'all watching. Be sure and subscribe. Hit the like button and ring the bell. That way you know about the next video that we've got coming up.